other species don't suffer from the varroa mite. There's no doubt that varroa is lethal. As it's spread across the globe over the past 50 years, it's resulted in the deaths of billions of honeybees. In some countries, including the United States, it's been linked to the disappearance of entire colonies, what they call colony collapse disorder. Here in Britain, though, it's a rather different story. For a start, varroa only affects honeybees, not wild bees, and they've been in decline here as well for some time. And crucially, it only arrived here about 20 years ago. And we know our bees have been dying off for much longer than that. So while it's true that varroa has put an added strain on the honeybees, the evidence would indicate that it's not responsible for the whole problem. Our second suspects, pesticides, are the most controversial. This year, the European Commission announced a 2-year ban on the use of certain pesticides called neonicotinoids. They said the evidence now showed that they were an unacceptable danger to bees feeding on flowering crops. And this is what's generating more heat than anything else: neonicotinoid pesticides. Often they come coated on the seeds, like on this rapeseed, so that as the plant grows, the chemicals spread throughout the organism, through the roots, the leaves, the flowers, even to the nectar and the pollen. Now, one of the terms that scientists use to measure just how lethal these things are is called LD50, the dose that is lethal to 50%, half of the test subjects. Now, the lethal dose for a bee is just 4 billionths of a gram, which raises an important question. Just what are these things doing to our bees? Neonicotinoids are nerve agents, and they only affect insects. They were introduced in the 1990s to replace more harmful pesticides. When used properly, they cause deadly paralysis in small pests like aphids. But if they do that to aphids, what's the effect on the bees? There's a scientist in Germany investigating just that. 40 years of research have made Professor Randolph Menzel a global authority on the nervous system of bees. One thing that's excited him for many years is just how advanced their communication is. Especially their famous waggle dance. Returning from a foraging trip, this bee is telling its co-workers precisely where she found her pollen.
They just use the body to inform the others about any important place out in the field. A wonderful flower or pollen place.
As she circles, the bee repeatedly waggles during one phase of her dance, here walking straight upwards.
It is this phase which codes the direction relative to the sun and the distance.
Walking upwards while she waggles tells the other bees to head towards the sun. The number of times she moves from side to side tells them how far to fly. The brain controlling this sort of behavior is clearly rather sophisticated.
This kind of cognitive process requires the highest order of neural processing in this little brain. That means anything which is disturbing on these fine network processes should have a high impact.
With the radar technology, Randolph and his team have been investigating whether neonicotinoids could affect bees' brains. They're testing their ability to find their way home after feeding.
This is our feeding place. That means bees have been trained from the hive, and we trained them stepwise to this location. We catch it in the moment it arrives here, put it into a container like this, which contains 50 microliter of sucrose solution.
The bees are fed one of two different solutions.
We have groups which are fed with the pesticide, delivered in the sucrose solution, and other groups which are not fed with the pesticide. We compare them.
The bees have made many trips to the feeding station, and that means they know how to fly in a straight line between here and the hive. They do this on autopilot, using what's known as their vector memory.
So when she is ready to take off, she will